In 1957, a small metal sphere, no bigger than a beach ball, terrified the most powerful nation on Earth. It was Soviet. It circled the entire planet every 90 minutes. And it passed directly over the United States. If they could place a satellite above America, the fear went. They could one day place a weapon there too. That fear lit the fuse of the greatest technological contest in human history, the race to the moon. On October 4, 1957, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik, the first artificial satellite. Across America, people stood in their yards at night and watched a foreign machine drift silently across the sky. A nation that had felt untouchable suddenly felt exposed. The sky itself no longer seemed safe. Weeks later, the Soviets did it again, launching a second satellite, this one carrying a living dog into orbit. America scrambled to answer. Its first satellite rocket rose barely 4 feet off the pad and burst into flame. The newspapers mocked it as a flopnik. The humiliation was complete. Then, in 1961, the Soviets stunned the world once more. They launched the first human being into space, Yuri Gagarin, who orbited the Earth and returned a hero. The most powerful country on Earth was losing the race in front of the entire world. Into that anxiety stepped a young president with an answer that startled even his own advisors. America would not merely try to catch the Soviets. It would try to leap clean past them. The goal he chose was so bold, so expensive, and so dangerous that it bordered on reckless.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Land a man on the moon and return him safely to the Earth before the decade was out. It would cost tens of billions of dollars, and it could fail in front of the whole world. And there was one more problem. Almost none of the technology needed to do it existed yet. America's answer began with Project Mercury and 7 test pilots who volunteered to ride rockets few people trusted. They would be hurled into space atop missiles first designed to carry weapons of war. First, they had to prove a human could even survive the violence of launch and the strangeness of weightlessness. In 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American in space, a 15-minute leap above the Atlantic. It was a small step next to Gagarin's orbit, but at last, America was truly in the game. The next year, John Glenn climbed higher still and circled the entire planet 3 times. During his fiery return, a warning flashed in mission control. His heat shield might be coming loose. Glenn rode it out and splashed down alive. A nation exhaled, and its astronauts became heroes. Mission by mission, the gap was finally beginning to close. But reaching the moon demanded skills that no one on Earth had ever attempted. How do you leave your spacecraft and survive in the raw vacuum of space? How do you find another ship in orbit, moving 5 miles every second, and gently join to it? And how do you keep human beings alive out there, not for minutes, but for days on end? That was the mission of Project Gemini, the bridge between a simple orbit and a voyage to another world. In 1965, Ed White floated out through his hatch, the first American to walk in space. For 20 minutes, he drifted above a blue and turning Earth, weightless and free. And when he was finally told to come back inside, he called it the saddest moment of his life. Other crews stayed aloft for nearly 2 weeks, proving the body could endure the long voyage to the moon. They chased down target craft and flew in formation, learning the delicate art of rendezvous. Then they learned to dock, joining 2 spacecraft into one, the very maneuver a moon landing would require. One docking nearly ended in disaster when a jammed thruster sent the crew into a violent spinning tumble. They fought the spin under control and survived, and even that terror became a lesson learned. Every skill the moon would demand was tested and mastered, one flight at a time. All of it was building toward a single staggering machine, the most powerful rocket ever flown, the Saturn V. It stood 363 feet tall, a skyscraper built to fly. 5 enormous engines at its base could unleash 7.5 million pounds of thrust, enough to hurl 3 human beings across 250,000 miles of empty space. It was assembled standing upright inside one of the largest buildings on Earth, then carried to the pad at a slow crawl. Behind it stood 400,000 Americans, racing a deadline and a rival that never once let up. By the summer of 1969, after 12 years of failure and triumph, everything was finally ready. The engines came alive, and the Saturn V tore itself free of the Earth. Slowly at first, then impossibly fast, it climbed toward the sky and toward the moon. In minutes, the spacecraft was racing through space faster than any humans had ever traveled. For 3 days, they coasted across the void as the Earth shrank to a small blue marble behind them. Then, 4 days after launch, human beings slipped into orbit around another world. Below them scrolled a grey and cratered landscape no human eye had ever seen up close. And on July 20th, 1969, a lander settled onto the moon, and a man backed down a ladder. He pressed his boot into the grey lunar dust, and an American flag rose where no human being had ever stood. 250,000 miles below, an entire planet held its breath, and then erupted in joy. The race was over. America had reached the moon first. From a beeping sphere that shocked a nation to footprints on the moon had taken just 12 short years. The space race was born of fear, of rivalry, and of Cold War suspicion. But what it left behind was something far greater, a fragile blue planet, seen whole for the very first time. A view that would change forever how humanity saw itself, and proof that when a nation dares to attempt the impossible, it can reach all the way to another world.